Welcome back. I'm so excited to share the chat with my great friend, the always interesting David Greenwalt, showrunner, creator, writer, producer extraordinaire, the creative talent who was instrumental in bringing us Buffy, Angel, Grimm, and so much more. And now for part 3. But first, a word from our sponsors. Grave Robbers from Outer Space card game is the game where you create your own B-movie and have a blast doing it. I love my movie's title this round. The House of the Vampire Goddess and the Annihilation of the Naughty Minion. Since I'm not your minion, I like it too. Alright, my cute vampire girl attacks your aged vampire hunter. Time to make him a ghoul to serve me! Diamonds are a ghoul's best friend. Come on, Drew. You always drag out your turn. I'll discard his sharp stake, but your cute vampire girl is now dust. Not so fast. I play Hiss and Flee, so she's safely back in my hand. Fair move. Secretly happy the vamp is okay. How many characters do you have left? 3. My prom queen, the bookish girl with no boyfriend, and the big bad wolf. Why? Oh, plot twist. The doomsday device goes off. Everyone dies. It's really weird, Drew. You always seem to get that one. I did say. Annihilation of the naughty minion. I'm not your minion. 1, 2. And guess what? What? I win! Again! The link so you can see how to play the game and get your own sets of cards is graverobbersgame.com. How do you manage the workload, the schedule, the pressure when you are the showrunner of a weekly show?
I believe I've learned in my old age that when I changed from movies to TV and I realized I need to go to the top of this, and my son's mother, my then wife, I said, you got to treat me like I'm an opera singer, a baseball player. I must rise to the top. This is what I felt, my terrible ego. And so I worked 15, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. We worked, particularly on Buffy and Angel. But the illusion that you are so gosh darn important. And I had the thing for a while. I started to get over it even before the end of Buffy and Angel. But if somebody is sick, it's like, no, you can't be sick. You can't go home. We're at war here, right? It's a sort of a cult thing. And I did see that X-Files, those guys work 7 days a week. And X-Files stories were really hard to come by. You know, for me, a good show, Buffy, Angel, Grimm, Prophet, there's a lot of great ideas. It's still a lot of work. X-Files, they were like miners with their belts turned tight. So there's a cult feeling. And also, when you're out there shooting, but you're also in the offices, it's like you're going off to war, you're coming back. So there's something probably a little addictive about that. And not until I did Grimm with Jim Calf, and we did 123 episodes, we just worked a normal day, and we hired excellent people and let them do their job. Excellent actors, costume, we had the best props person I've ever seen, and art direction, production designers, etc., and the crew. And a show like Grimm and Buffy and Angel, it's different every week. You're not just in the courtroom or the hospital. So the answer is nobody's that necessarily important. We are not curing pediatric AIDS. And if you're not having fun and if you're not grateful, something is not right. That was kind of a long lesson. And Jim Calf and I had written so much together that we could write 15 pages a day on Grimm and still run the show. But the show was run well because we hired such talented people and they were so devoted. I love the crews. And somebody's got to get an award where they just pull the guy who cleans the latrines out of a thing and talk about him. I haven't got that award yet, but when I do, that's what I'm going to do.
The metaphor for Buffy was high school as hell. Do you have a high school as hell story to share?
Well, I have a high school as wild adventure. Can I tell a big LSD story?
Sure.
So One of my really good buddies in high school was named Kevin Hunter, and unfortunately, he would die of an overdose some years later. And this is that summer of love, 67. And we were going to go to Topanga Canyon, which is a canyon in Los Angeles, and buy a bunch of LSD from the hippies up there we could do. So we go up there, and it was green in a capsule. So we buy some LSD, and then we drive back down the Pacific Coast Highway, and he had a Chevy Bel Air. For some reason, he was letting me drive it. And we're driving, and we're saying, well, it's nothing. The LSD, it's nothing. This is crappy. We've got to go back up there and get our money back. They sold us some bullshit. Now I'm driving in his car on the Pacific Coast Highway, and I see in the rearview mirror maybe like 40 cops on highway patrol with their lights on, and everybody's honking, and it turns out I'm going 14 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Oh crap, we're busted. And I pull over off the PCH. He says, just don't let them know we're high. There's nobody there. It was the hallucination in the mirror.
Now that's really safe, David.
So now we say, well, this is great. So now we go back and we buy maybe 13, 14 more hits. And Kevin and I took 6 more hits. So we've now each taken 7. And our good friend, Bob Emmerichs, takes 2 or 3, and we drive to Palm Springs, and it's spring break. And we are so high out of our minds. We don't know where we are, what's going on, but it's spring break in Palm Springs. And then we drive off the road and get stuck in the sand. We don't know what we're going to do out there in the desert. And a white van comes and stops. Some fellas get out. They never say a word. They tie a winch to our car that they had in the back of it. They pull us out and they leave. So now we drive into Palm Springs at sunrise, and we are still high out of our minds, and God speaks to me. We're just parked waiting for town to open up and some girls we know to wake up. And I hear, David. I'm like, what? Like, David. And I say, what? It says, come to service. And we were parked next to an auto service place, right? And they were calling some guy David to go to service. The highlight of that story is the 3 prettiest girls in high school were staying in a motel room, and we got to stay in there and sleep on the floor with them. So that was a good experience.
Was there ever a time in your life that you felt like the outsider, someone trying to fit in?
Well, always. I was kind of a pudgy kid, and when I first went from that Christian school to the big high school, I was still short, and I'd shave my head for football, which I was terrible at. That was scary. And there were all these people, they were cool people, rich people that had motorcycles and cool cars, and the cholos with the khaki pants with the perfect crease. I was just afraid all the time something bad was going to happen. And then that first summer, I grew 5 inches. So I became tall and thin. And my father had looked in on my bedroom one night, and he hollered from my mother, and he said, he's climbed out the window. He's not even in there. I was so thin. Now, it is true. I did climb out my window most weekend nights and go have a party. And here's another interesting thing. There was a club called the Palladium on Sunset Strip. We would sneak out and go down there around midnight. We saw the Seeds, a group, opening for the Doors. We saw Buffalo Springfield. We saw all these groups that would become insanely successful. And actually, John Densmore, the drummer of the Doors, kind of lived in our little middle-class lower Westwood area. So there was a lot of kind of interesting stuff.
Did you ever experience bullying or cliques?
Yes. So I would have cut off my arm to be popular. And when I grew, I actually did become popular. And University High School is very interesting. There's a thing called the upper patio where the cool kids ate lunch. And then there's the lower patio. And then way down there was a grove. Now, I became very blessed because I was dating a gal named Shelley Nobles who had a Mustang. Her best friend, Debbie Reed, was dating Jerry Espinoza. And Jerry Espinoza was a cholo, but he was so tough and cool, he could also surf. He could hang with anybody. And because the 4 of us dated so much, he became a very good friend. And I never really had a fight. I only had one fight in high school that I started, and thank God somebody stopped it. But because Jerry, everybody was afraid of, and people would come out, I'd be in nutrition or lunch, and they'd say, look, I was just asking Jerry's girlfriend, Debbie, about the algebra. I wasn't, I say, hey, you're cool. And there were these clubs, and the boys had these clubs like the Gents and the Legends. And the girls, they were the Chanels or the whatever, but every grade had these kind of clubs. And there was kind of a thing like, don't sit on this table bench because it's this club. And then when the LSD and all that came in, all that dissolved, fell apart, and we all started eating way down in a grove together more. And that whole thing just dissolved like that, which was really kind of cool. Everything that had seemed so cool and important suddenly seemed like it was wrong and the opposite was true. Well, that was a big moment.
Yeah, big shift.
Big shift.
What is the best date you've ever been on?
So in high school, in my grade, class of 67, was a quite beautiful blonde named Kathy Eaton, but her boyfriend, Lee Mull, was at least 1 year ahead of us, and he was a 5th-degree black belt. So Kathy and I would just pass on a stair, just a nice nod. I knew never to cross that line. Now it's 1980. I'm 30-ish years old. I'm staying in Jeff's house in Malibu. There's a knock on the door. I open it, and this same beautiful girl is standing there in a negligee at 7 a.m. in the morning. I say, what? Kathy, what is the thing? She says, well, she and now her husband, Lee, are staying in her parents' house, but the front door has closed and no key, no cell phone, no nothing. So she calls the husband. He comes up, and then we all become friends.
Oh,
So there was Jim Kauf and his thing. There was me and my girlfriend. There was Lee and Kathy, and there was a fourth one. And all those relationships dissolved. And then it was on for me and Kathy, although they were so recently separated. I was so there was the torrid, mad, crazy love affair that was wild
and not destined to last.
Thank you. And never destined to last, as that kind of thing is. So that ties high school in. Her appearing in a door could be the best Crete meet, and then some of our dates were spectacular. Like one time we had this fabulous dinner down there in Channel Road, which runs into the Pacific Coast Highway and the beach. Then we went across the street and went swimming in the ocean at night. And I certainly drank my fill. But yeah, not destined. Many things aren't.
Would you describe yourself as anarchic or by the book?
Oh, well, you need both. Stephen King's book on writing is fascinating. And he writes anarchically, that's a word. Like the characters tell him a story, he doesn't know how it's going to end. He knows he has a good situation. And John Grisham and some commercials, they always know what the end is. They know where they're going, right? And some of them do very intense outlines. Some people just sit down and write. Now, Jim Kauf, we would get an idea for a story on Grimm, get it approved, help the writer do an outline, send the outline in. Then the writer had X amount of time to deliver a script to us. And I would not have wanted to be a writer on Grimm because whatever that date was, we had to have the script. We'd put it up on a big giant screen. We'd encourage the writer to be there with us. Usually they were. And we'd start typing. Now, generally I had written the script. And so writing with Jim, talk about anarchism, was like surfing a wave that might come from any direction, anytime. I remember one time we were writing an episode. I said, yeah, but if you do that, Nick, the lead character of Grimm, played by David Gentoli, the nicest man I ever met, I said, the FBI will arrest him. This is great. And we just went to a whole new way. I think both things have a good place. Now, the other big lesson on Grimm, and we try to impart to our writers, more junior writers, they want these really complex stories with lots of twists. No, you want a simple plot and complex characters who tell you the story, who drive the plot. That seemed like a really good lesson, but there's no hard and fast in this thing. And I watch great actors, and it's like, I understand what they're thinking and feeling. Like you and James Marsters. I know everything they're thinking and feeling. I don't know how I know that. But there's this thing they call choices in acting. So how are you? How are you? There's so many different ways. And then I'll see a thing. It's like the story is working. The acting is authentic, but it's like, oh, I didn't see that coming. So mystery and surprise and technique, you need all these things. And then you got to disappear. And this is my bone with some big directors. You're supposed to be anonymous. You're not supposed to be, what a great, although it's fun to do a great big shot sometimes. Writer's supposed to be anonymous. The director's supposed to be anonymous. And the actors are supposed to understand What step are they in the story? Where are they in their arc and the arc of the story they were all slave to?
What are they serving in the whole? Because it is all about the story. Ultimately, as an actor, you are there to facilitate the story.
So true. And, that's a thing of a lot of time and training that maybe you don't just instinctively know when you're starting out.
Hey Drew, this bar is so cool, and I love your tiki-inspired outfit. I do like to blend in when I'm on a secret mission. Here, take these and put them in your bag. What? No! Wait, are these gems? These pieces are amazing. Ooh, I love this creature from the Black Lagoon handcrafted ceramic mug. Oh, and this King Kong watering spike is super cool. Oh my gosh, I also love this American Werewolf in London mug. The work is so detailed. As you know, these come from More Monsters. Jim Moore sent an email taunting me with these lovely, handmade, one-of-a-kind items. I must have them. Drew, that was my email. I've asked you 1,000,000 times not to read my emails. We don't need to steal these. Jim is advertising his Etsy page, More Monsters, on our podcast. Re-Vamptees get a special 20% discount. The code is MONSTERMUG, all caps, all one word.
Excuse me, ma'am. Could I see your bag?
Well, you see my friend here, Scooby-Drew. Scooby-Drew? Drusilla, where are you?
Follow me, ma'am.
But wait, it's my friend. She's obsessed with Jim Moore's work. She didn't realize it's for sale, but saw that you had it in your bar, and I explained everything to her.
Your friend?
Well, she thinks I'm her minion, but she seems to have disappeared.
Right.
Really? This has nothing to do with me.
Tell it to the judge.
Go to More Monsters Etsy page, Moore, and use the Re-Vamped special 20% discount code, MONSTERMUG.
Can you tell us about your novel?
Well, let me think. I wrote a memoir, which I am not well pleased with because I'm such a B- celebrity. And what's interesting in my story is a lot of success and then a, long, boring afternoon, dark night of the soul thing. I want to redo that more like little short stories that I don't have to name people. And the novel you are speaking about is called Into a Dancer. Now, I was close with a man for many years, a remarkable guy. He was a very successful dentist in Brentwood. He traveled all over the world to Wimbledon and the Australian Open and the Paris Open. And he was a very physical guy. He rode a bike everywhere he went. So if you're having dinner with him, I don't care what part of LA, he comes on the bike, right? This fella, whose name was Russell Moon, had a terrible accident one night and became a quadriplegic. So all he could do was move his head. And then I insisted on being even closer to him. And there were a few of us men who were very close to this guy. So first he's 6 weeks, I think, lying upside down at UCLA, and there's nothing they can do. Then he's in one of these sort of quad nursing homes, which was way out in Northridge, which is the north end of the San Fernando Valley here in Los Angeles. And it wasn't that it was down and dirty. It was just like all these quads are sitting in their wheelchairs, drugged and watching TV. But Russell Moon has these probably 30 good friends, but 6 men very close to him. And he became a saint because a person is so physical. That seemed like the worst.
Yeah.
But he became a saint and he helped a lot of men. He'd roll up to guys and just help people. And I go to dinner with him a lot. And he'd go up to the busboy and the waitress and everybody. How are you doing? How's your family? He never complained. And talk about a dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And then eventually he died. So I was always thinking, what is a story about somebody who is so physical and then has none of that? Oh, so the wife and I are in Sedona, Arizona, which some people call Vortex. There's supposed to be these energy centers. This has never happened before since I wake up at 5:30 in the morning and I understand the entire novel in 10 minutes.
Oh.
And what it is, it's about a top choreographer in New York, dance, the number one guy is in his 50s. He rides his $14,000 bike everywhere he goes. Only this guy's a prick. And he sleeps around a lot, and he's had 2 wives, and he's estranged from his children, and there's all this stuff. But he's very talented and very well paid. And he has this terrible accident, and he becomes a quadriplegic, ergo into a dancer, because he's a dancer. It's a line from a Jackson Browne song. So now he is really pissed and really full of pity and really feeling sorry for himself. And he sets about trying to kill himself, but he can't do anything. He can move the wheelchair. And he tries to talk a friend of his into shooting him up. But anyway, the first wife, they have 2 grown kids. But the second wife is the Doctors Without Frontiers. And she doesn't hear about this for 6 months. And so she comes home and just kicks his ass. Won't give him any pity, won't give him any quarter, won't feel sorry for him. And there's a scene where they are kind of keeping an eye on him because they know he wants to kill himself. And he lives in one of these big lofts, but they think he's gone down in the elevator, but he's actually gone up on the roof, right, which has a glass rail. And we see him full speed. And by the way, my friend's wheelchair went 20 miles an hour. I mean, he zipped around. And they realize what he's doing. They run up to the roof, and they don't see him. And he's been caught on this glass wall, and he's just hanging half over the thing. So, and it's a redemption story. And eventually he learns to love his children. He kind of learns to love himself, and he teaches again, but he can't move. He just gives commands. So it's a redemption story. It's a nice story.
Yeah, it sounds profound, and that he really goes on a journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never had a whole story come to me like that before, but I always wanted to honor Russell Moon, but this is a completely different take on that because he's such a prick, which is fun.
What are you working on now?
So I have a bunch of interesting things in the pipeline. I always had an avocation in music. If we look all the way back,
Oh,
Jeff Bridges and I used to play guitar every night. And we even did a few of those open mic things like at the Troubadour, which is sort of a famous club in Los Angeles. We were called the Feather Brothers. And I am writing songs with a brilliant partner. And we have a backup singer, and we're going to be recording and wait for it, performing somewhere, some way this coming year.
oh my gosh, we're coming.
Of course you are. And that's right where my heart is right now, where the fun is,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. You've had some dark periods in your life. Are you comfortable sharing how you coped with them?
I'm an open book about that stuff. There was always a certain amount of melancholy in my life, and that's like the old country where my dad came from. And then there was like the thing of the golden child. You're the golden child, but you're also too sad and sensitive. I think it's a result of setting sights on the wrong things, except you'll only learn through suffering. So I had a bit of a breakdown. The high school girl I told you about, the torrid affair, that would be like early 80s. But I came back from that pretty well. And then I went on to this amazing success. But I had worked so hard, and it did cost that second wife, that second family, my son's mother. We were happily married for 23 years. But like I had said earlier, I've got to give all to this thing, and I've got to be a champion. And the other thing, this is more a positive thing, I had no plan B early on. I'm either a writer or that's it. And it's kind of helpful to have no plan B. It's scary, but it's helpful. But anyway, then I started having all this wonderful success in television, and everything was great, going really well. And Jeff Bridges talked about a thing. He says, you think you're swimming up in the ocean, but you're actually swimming down, but you don't even know it. And after I left Angel, did 3 years on Buffy and 3 years on Angel, and I ran several other shows different times. I never had the big hit again, well, until Grimm many years later. And it was just one day, it's like the floor fell out. It was really fast in a way, even though I'd had all these ups and downs and put a shrink or two's kids through college, and I just didn't have it. William Styron has a really good book. It's a little thin book about he had this big breakdown, and he wrote a wonderful book on it called Darkness Visible. So suddenly I just had that true clinical depression. Usually you think, well, that's really sad. They should take a walk and play tennis, And I had never experienced it quite like this, which is I can't put a sock on my foot. I'm lying on the bathroom floor. I cannot take a walk. And my lovely sister had every book, cognitive therapy, all this stuff, and she'd marked all these things. Nothing could reach me. And there's a psychological term called anhedonia, which I love. Anhedonia is the inability to feel any pleasure whatsoever about anything whatsoever. And in fact, I have a song. Now, the song is called A Song on Every Corner. The song was originally called L.A. Song and was written for Christian Kane to sing in Angel, because in that bar in Angel, you sang a song, and so that's how the demon could read you. And that song has been revamped with this partner. Everything's beautiful. It's warm. The girl loves me. I can't feel a thing. I can't see a thing. And this went on for 5 years and change. I kept trying to go back to work because it was so hard on my wife, Danny, then my son Xander's mother, and it's sort of like, Sisyphus, you get, and you just always fall back farther and farther and farther. And then finally I couldn't do anything. And there was fairly massive overdose, little visit to the nut house. Now remember, I'd owned 4 houses. I'd made a lot of money. I'd had a lot of success. And I was old. This all happened around 58 years old. It's a midlife if I'm going to live to be 120. And then I went into this sort of funky halfway house for a long time, and slowly, and I did get the right meds. I've been to the most expensive psychopharmacologist on the west side of LA. And now I had lost everything. I had a $15 copay, and I met a genius at UCLA, just pure luck. And again, the culture sort of thinks, oh, well, you take the med. No, the best meds in the world, which are so hard to get, might give you 15, 20%, but it's enough to get off that bathroom floor. And then there's a group I go to, and they talk about a thing called contrary action, which means you have to behave yourself out of this stuff. And my whole life was sort of like, oh, as soon as I feel better, I'm going to be such a wonderful person. I'm going to be true to the women, I'm going to never lie, cheat. And a couple of years of this, every day I did the opposite of everything I felt. All of it. Day after day, month after month, year after year. In about 2.5 years, I started feeling a lot better. And then this Grimm show came along. Jim Cow did a lot of heavy lifting in the beginning of that. So very slowly, I was restored to life, love, and sanity. And the most important thing is whatever that connection, that higher power, some call it quantum, some call it God, spirit, something that is so much greater than us. That's number one. My beloved son is number 2. Then I have 16 various offspring from all these women I married with children and grandchildren. Work is like distant number 4. That seems to work. But I've been so lucky, and I like the serendipitous word used. And these terrible things are sort of treasures, too. We don't know them at the time, but they are treasures, and sometimes you can help somebody else who thinks they're the only one in the world. So all in all, it's on a plus side of the balance sheet.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, David, because I think it helps people to know that they're not alone when they experience this.
And isolation is a terrible thing. Whatever seems to be happening at any time, and it's big in the addiction world too, one isolates. And I'm a very social person. I love working with all my successes with partners. I love working on television sets in the theater. But you do learn who your friends are. I mean, I didn't talk to anybody. I lay on a bed mostly. I got up, go to work, lose a job. And there were 2 or 3 of my dear friends, they just didn't allow it. And then they came to the halfway house and they dragged me out. Nothing is as bad as it seems, and maybe nothing is as good. I'm not sure about that part. Well, Shakespeare, nothing is either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so.
Hey, Drew, want to be in the wine business and own a piece of a vineyard? Vampire Vineyards? Well, actually, yes. They have been in the vampire wine business for over 30 years, and now Vampire.com is expanding and accepting investments from the public, so everyone can become an owner of Vampire Vineyards. Among their many awards and medals, in 2026, Vampire's Pinot Noir has received not just a gold medal, but it was named Best of Class by the Los Angeles Times Invitational Wine and Spirits Challenge. I've sipped the blood of the vine, and it's absolutely to die for. Also, who can say no to the Dracula's Red Blend? A commanding blend of bold red varietals with dark spice and a velvety finish, smooth enough to keep you lingering in the shadows. Shh. Someone's whisper. Psst, 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 psst. But this one whispers my name, Drusilla. You'll be happy to hear many of their bottles come clothed in cute little velvet and silk vampire capes, and some even rest in peace in a fantastic coffin-shaped box. Step into the cellar at vampire.com to discover the full collection of vampire wines, spirits, and other dark delights. I do look rather fetching in a cape. Tell me more, simple minion. Not a minion. But for our listeners, I will tell more. The investment offering is open till April 30th. For more details, go to wefunder.com/vampirespirits to read all about the opportunity. Well, you know what I say? What? This is nothing to whine about. Hee hee.
What was your recent trip to Antarctica like?
Recently, Ronnie, my wife, and I went to the long-awaited place we wanted to go, which is Antarctica. And you hear Africa and Antarctica are the two big life-changing trips. And it certainly was true of Africa, the beginning of world. You think you're a million years ago. And Antarctica was the most fascinating thing I have ever seen. You fly to the tip of Chile, a little town called Punta Arena, and then you fly to King George Island, which is, you land in tundra on mud, and you walk down to a Zodiac boat, and the wind is howling, and the water is splashing, and you take the Zodiac boat out to, in our case, a cruise ship. There's no docks, there's no people, there's no indigenous people, there's no industry, there's no government. There are universal agreements, and they're doing a lot of good research there. And as we were going out to the ship, water turns to ice as it hits you. I thought this is the most fantastic thing I've ever seen. Jim Cow, my longtime writing partner, always talked about our lives are too safe. There's no danger. There's no adventure. And it's a very monochromatic world. It's blue. It's white. It's however the sky is colored that day. And occasionally it's like brown on the land, but it's almost all ice and icebergs.
The videos and the photos that you sent are extraordinary.
It's an extraordinary place. Icebergs floating by the score, hundreds over a day. And we were there in what is their summer, January, right? That summer in Antarctica. So it's never really dark. In the middle of the night, 3 a.m., they look like Henry Moore sculptures. Or clouds, you see things, and some are giant and some are small. The iceberg that sunk the Titanic was 100 feet wide and 200 feet deep. It's like 80 or 90% you don't see below, right? You see how insignificant we are. You see how this will all be here long after we're gone. There's something unfathomable and for me incomprehensible, possibly like looking into the burning bush. This is something extraordinary beyond my ken to understand, and yet it's there. So I really loved it so much. It was a life changer.
Sounds like it was humbling.
Very humbling, which most of life is and should be.
What lessons have you learned lately that feel like important growth?
Well, they made a big mistake. When I was in 5th grade, we had these IQ tests, and you could see where you were in a class, and I was number 2 or 3, so they always thought I was smart. I'm facile, and I'm shrewd and cunning, but I'm not smart. I've always been a very, very slow learner, and I've always been very naive and gullible. So most everything I thought was white is black. Most everything I thought is good is maybe not. My beloved mother, my father died, she was only 49, and later she said she never learned anything till she was 49. And she had a wonderful second and third act in her life, but I still think I've really not learned much of anything. I love telling stories, I love breaking stories, I love art, theater, and musicals, and reading, and hearing other people's points of view. I want to write a song called It's Never Too Late, right? It's never too late to go out and dance, never too late all this stuff. But I want to end that song, it's never too late to make your own look, and it's never too late to shut the fuck up. And that is the only thing I've learned.
I think that sums it up perfectly. Well, David, thank you so much for this.
Oh, thank you.
It has been phenomenal talking with you, as it always is, whether we're at dinner, whether we're at a film festival, whether we're on set, whether we're sitting here and talking. I'm infinitely fascinated by your life, your story, your craft, your human beingness. Not that that's a word, but I love you, and it's just been an incredible chat.
I love you. It's so interesting. I said this at dinner too. It's rare, but when you make such good friends, you guys are like superheroes. It's insane. God bless you. See you guys soon. Love you both.
Love you. Bye.
Let's get ready to Buffy!
Vengeance Val was the victor in our first inaugural Battle of the Uber Buffy fans. If you would like to challenge her title and be considered as a contender for this season's battle, please email revampedpod@gmail.com. Yes, be sure to include your name, where you weigh in with your number of watch-throughs, where you're located, something interesting about you, or something you think would be good to share,
And your social media handles.
Yes, woohoo. Woohoo. Boop boop be drove. Revamptees, please correspond with me on our Patreon page, Revamped with Juliet Landau, on Twitter, @Juliet Landau, on Instagram, @Juliet_Landau, and on the Fans of Juliet Landau Facebook group, or Juliet Landau official Facebook page. Patreon peeps to be read in the credits: Dave Hall, Fawny June Kendall, Daniel Harbour, Louise Brennan, Brandon Key, Cameron Burton, Donnie Ruskin, Madeline Pruitt, Marion Stevenson, Antonio H. Gutierrez, and Bobby Pelham. It makes all the difference because we cannot keep making the show without you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Until we meet again.
See you next time when we do it again. Do it again. Until then, rewatch, revamp, reinvent, and be remarkable you.